an important update on the progress of HISA, the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Authority, the act for which was passed earlier this year. It has had a most interesting past, even though its past is relatively limited, and hopefully it has a flourishing future. The man to tell you a bit more about HISA is its chair, Charles Sheeler, who's with us now.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the kind introduction, Nick. My name is Charlie Sheeler, as Nick said, and it's a great privilege to be before you today to provide an update on HISA's work. I'm delighted to announce that as of May 22nd of just this year, and for the first time in our nation's history, there is one set of anti-doping rules across the entire country being applied uniformly for the first time to ensure a safe and fair sport. We did not get here easily. As you may have heard, politics in America can be contentious from time to time. But after years of hard work, the HISA Act was passed by the United States Congress in rare bipartisan fashion at the end of 2020. Many industry leaders deserve credit, as do enlightened animal rights organizations. But there's two I'd like to call out in particular: the Jockey Club, led by Jim Gagliano, and TBC, the Breeders' Cup, led by Drew Fleming. HISA would not be here without your hard work, and we are blessed to call you partners and friends in this effort. What Jim, Drew, and many others got is for horse racing to thrive, it must stand on a foundation of safety and fairness. It's an important task because Nelson Mandela, among others, recognized that sport is a critical window for the propagation of fair play and justice. That's what drew me to this task as well. The importance of fairness was impressed upon me at a tender age. When I was just 2 years old, my parents entered me in a local golf tournament of some renown. You may have heard of it, Jimmy Flattery's Diaper Derby. While my parents weren't golfers, they must have had a wicked sense of humor, because they dropped me off at the course and fled without telling me anything about the game of golf. The tourney organizers weren't much better. They handed me a stick and a ball, told me to place the latter object in a hole with another that had another stick in it, and pointed me towards the course. I quickly concluded that golf was not that hard. I navigated the course using my stick to assist my balance through some rough patches. And when I dropped my ball in the hole wherever I saw a hole with a stick in it. When asked at the end how many times I had hit my ball with the stick, I was confused, but I answered correctly, 0. I might hold the Diaper Derby record today, except a local newspaper photographer caught me in the act. There I am, being caught cheating red-handed. Soon my scandal was in newspapers from Seattle to Baltimore. Thankfully, I couldn't read yet, and so I wasn't traumatized for life by these events. But there was no Diaper Derby trophy for me, and at my first glimpse into the fundamental principle of fair play. And notice this, it's 1959, the first page of the sports section, and 2 of the big articles on horse racing. That's horse racing in the 1950s in the United States. While sadly this event turned out to be the highlight of my sports career, the experience may have affected me more than I realized. As an adult, I served Senator George Mitchell's lead counsel, investigating steroid use in Major League Baseball, and led efforts to enhance safety in college football after tragedies at 2 major U.S. universities. This caused me to testify before Congress, an experience I recommend to no one. But what I saw in these efforts reaffirmed my belief that sports are an essential part of society. It brings us together like few things other than religion can do, and it stirs passions that can rival even religious fervor. It creates the types of bonds that reveal the human experience at its best. But with that passion comes a fickleness that can be a double-edged sword. When fans perceive that the stewards are not doing everything they can to preserve the sanctity of the sport they serve, those passions can quickly undermine the trust upon which the popularity of any sport rests. Major League Baseball had to work very hard to develop reforms to stanch the epidemic of steroids in its game. College football is focused on player safety like never before. The well-publicized spate of breakdowns at Churchill Downs this spring placed the sport firmly within the U.S. sporting public's crosshairs. So now it's horse racing's turn to show that those entrusted with its care are doing everything within their powers to make the sport safe and fair. Here's what HISA is doing to promote safety, fairness, and public trust. This initiative is led by our leader, CEO, Lisa Lazarus, who has brought experience from leadership positions in the NFL and the Fédération Équestre Internationale. She has been a godsend to HISA and the sport. HISA is working under the supervision of the Federal Trade Commission and in partnership with the members of the sport to transform racing. The essence of this effort is the creation of an ecosystem of care of surrounding horses. This includes things like a system that protects every single horse from the first moment it steps on the track for a timed workout. We have registered over 48,000 covered horses under our supervision. Approved vets inspect every horse before every race. We've conducted over 33,400 inspections so far this year. We're inspecting tracks, too, not just horses. All tracks must be accredited under HISA law every 3 years. 46 tracks have completed their initial safety audit. We've instituted a nationwide crop rule with a 6-strike limit, and with over 10 strikes resulting in a forfeiture of purse. In the first 6 months this was in effect, violations dropped 40%. The jockeys are catching on. Claims races pose unique risks for high-risk racehorses. In response, we've enacted a voided claim rule, which allows a steward to cancel a claim if the horse is not completely sound during the race. This has proved to be a valuable deterrent to entering a horse with any pre-existing injuries. Next, the Horse Integrity and Welfare Unit, or HIWU, is an essential element of this protective ecosystem. HIWU lost just this summer. As I mentioned, May 22nd, it went into business. Congress required that HISA contract with an independent drug testing organization who would administer the anti-doping element of HISA's mandate. In 2022, HISA contracted with Drug Free Sport International to administer this program. It's led by Ben Mosier, and he previously led programs of the National Basketball Association and Major League Baseball, among others. We wanted to make sure we drew not only from U.S. but worldwide anti-doping practice expertise. So in addition to 3 well-regarded American members, HIWU recruited 2 European experts to guide its efforts at continuous improvement. Jonathan Taylor serves as chair of the council. He's a London-based sports attorney who previously served as chair of the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA's, Compliance Review Committee, and is a long-standing counsel to the British Horse Racing Authority and undoubtedly familiar to many of you. Gunther Junger serves as a member of the advisory board and is the director of intelligence and investigations at WADA, and before that was the head of a cybercrime division in Germany. These leaders steer a program which comprised the majority of HISA's budget. We view this program as a 3-legged stool. First, we recognize the system must be fair in both perception and practice. I still recall from my junior golf days that in order to follow the rules, you must understand them. So HIWU has implemented a robust educational process for the horsemen and provided ample due process if they are charged. HISA has a hotline that has fielded over 50,000 inquiries so far. Our website has multilingual instructional infographics, handbooks, and instructional videos. HIWU's website lists all controlled and banned substances and provides a continuing dialogue of emerging issues and reminders. A well-understood set of rules benefits everyone and ensures that we only punish the true wrongdoers and not violations that might result from an innocent misunderstanding. The process for enforcing penalties provides an adequate opportunity to be heard and to receive an impartial ruling on the charges. Upon receiving a positive test on the A and the B sample for a banned substance, HIWU commences a firm but fair enforcement process. The responsible person for the covered horse, typically the trainer, is provisionally suspended pending a hearing, as is the horse, from running. This suspension is promptly posted on HIWU's site, so everything occurs in the public eye. In the first 75 days of operation, 39 horses were provisionally suspended by HIWU. This is a sea change in our country. I cannot emphasize this enough. Before HISA, no matter how serious a violation, a horseman was not suspended until a final judgment was rendered. This allowed the well-funded horsemen to game the system and put off the judgment day for months or even years while they continued to work the sport and their horses continued to run. Justice delayed is justice denied. That doesn't happen anymore. Now horsemen are incentivized to have their cases heard promptly. The cases are prosecuted by HIWU attorneys. Accused horsemen have the right to counsel, to fully tell their side of the story, to obtain an independent analysis of the B sample, and to cross-examine HIWU's witnesses. An independent panel of arbitrators from firm and dispute renders judgment. And the law provides the horsemen with right to appeal to the Federal Trade Commission if they are not satisfied with the hearing result. The second set of this three-legged stool, the second leg, is the testing protocol itself. HIWU provides race day testing for every horse race carried over an interstate signal. That, in and of itself, is not terribly new. But how we have tests now has changed substantially. Importantly, while widespread anti-doping has long been common, many jurisdictions, because we had 32 sets of rules, many jurisdictions just tested for a handful of substances. Drug testing has always been and will always be a cat and mouse game, and many state regimens were easy for sophisticated violators to evade. Today, the panel of substances we test is robust and consistent across the entire country. Out-of-competition testing has been ratcheted up substantially. The exact formula and criteria for out-of-competition testing is deliberately confidential so as not to inform the bad guys about HIWU's secret sauce. But the process is robust. In just the first 40 days of operation, HIWU roared out of the gate, testing over 9,900 horses, both race day and out of competition. Yet in my view, it is the third stool which is the most important. I investigated doping in Major League Baseball. I was also a federal prosecutor for 5 years and prosecuted large, sophisticated, and incredibly violent drug rings. From these two different worlds, I drew one conclusion. There is no substitute for developing human sources with access to the illegal dealings to bring perpetrators to justice. Wrongdoers can evade wiretaps. They can evade tests, but they must enlist confederates to accomplish any sophisticated scheme. It is by having hotlines, developing human sources, listening to the thrum of what's going on from the betters, and using leverage to gain cooperation that the cases are made that truly provide a deterrent. That's why the #1 recommendation of baseball's Mitchell Report was to create an in-house investigative unit with Major League Baseball to combat doping. The unit was comprised of former prosecutors and law enforcement officials. That unit has built cases against dozens of high-profile baseball players, and it has facilitated MLB's alliance with law enforcement. The dope dealers go to jail, and the doped players get suspended. Most importantly, cases like that get the attention of all the trainers and other horsemen and send a strong message that it does not pay to cheat. HIWU has followed that proven model. It has a team of former law enforcement agents who are investigating and developing cases as we speak. Some of these personnel worked on the investigations which predated HISA and sent a much needed alarm through the industry. Jorge Navarro, a trainer known as Juice Man, was sentenced to 5 years in prison for giving racehorses performing enhancing substances and providing substances to others. Trainer Jason Service was sentenced to 4 years in prison for repeated instances of doping the very horses that he was entrusted to protect. Making cases like these are the strongest deterrent that we have. We'll continue to work with law enforcement authorities and with the industry and invest our resources to remove these sinister elements of the sport, root and branch. HISA has no more important job than showing the racing world we can police this sport effectively and that cheating and putting potential winnings over a horse's health will not be tolerated. We are passionate about this. In addition to this wraparound ecosystem I've described to protect the horse, we're harnessing innovative solutions to monitor horse health. We monitor every vet exam of every horse from over 1,000 vets. Over 1 million vet exams have been uploaded to our portal in the first year, and this database grows at a rate of about 3,000 horse exams per day. At the same time, it's important that our tech is user-friendly if we expect every vet exam to be entered. So our portal now has been integrated with the 4 leading platforms that horsemen use to keep compliance safer and to create a one-click compliance goal. We're also compiling nationwide data from tracks on breakdowns, track conditions, other metrics. We're making PET scans more accessible. We're looking at the frequency of high-speed workouts and how that might affect competition safety. And by Congress's mandate, we're looking at LASIX. Congress told us that we had to conduct a 3-year study beginning with the institution of our anti-doping program this May. In the meantime, states may elect to continue to allow LASIX for 3-year-olds and up if they choose. LASIX remains banned in stakes races and 2-year-old races. At the conclusion of the study period, HISA will, based on the science emerging from the study, determine what, if any, role LASIX has in U.S. horse racing going forward. The board must be unanimous if anything other than a total ban is appropriate. Of course, all of this costs money. HISA's mandate provides that we obtain funding from the sports participants. We're mindful that we're spending other people's money, and we're trying to do our job as efficiently as we can. But at the same time, our message must be crystal clear. The horses come first. Equine welfare must be prioritized over profits. We recognize we must demonstrate progress and safety improvements. Since our racetrack safety program went into effect in July 22, we've seen a decline in fatal breakdowns. According to the Equine Injury Base, the first 6 months HISA's racetrack program in effect was the safest 6 months since that database went to effect in 2009. This favorable trend, however, has been overwhelmed in the public eye by a high-profile string of fatal accidents at Laurel, Churchill Downs, Belmont, and as you were just listening, Saratoga. We know we have to do better. Just last month, HISA completed and released its investigation of the fatalities at Churchill Downs this past May. This document serves as a roadmap for our safety efforts in the coming year. Churchill Downs spring season with the Kentucky Derby at its pinnacle is the event and the time of year when the American public is most focused on horse racing and when Nick Luck is in Louisville, Kentucky. The Derby was the NBC's most watched event since the Super Bowl. Tragically, 12 horses died during the Churchill meet, including 2 on the Derby undercard on May 6th. HISA worked closely with Churchill and management and ultimately agreed to move the remainder of the meet to Kentucky Downs. But the shockwaves from this run of tragedies continues to reverberate in the states. Those events create a mandate that we and the sport up our game. HISA focused on 3 types of data in its investigation: track surface conditions, vet records, including necropsy reports, and possible rules violations or other deficiencies in care. There was no common theme we found to these backgrounds. No single cause could be identified. Each background included unique circumstances. These findings, then, or the lack of them, only underscored the need to take additional precautions across the board and conduct further research, all with a great sense of urgency given our safety mission. So the roadmap we laid out includes, number 1, the creation of a Blue Ribbon Committee led by the New York Racing Association to evaluate the incorporation of synthetic surfaces at leading racetracks. Second, the establishment of a track service advisory group so that the expertise is available on an emergency basis if track surface issues arise anywhere in the country during a meet. Third, HISA is consulting with Amazon Web Services, which has been integrally involved in the National Football League's efforts, and Palantir Technologies, a leading data analytics firm. With the benefit of these partners' cutting-edge expertise, we will explore how we can best use the health and safety data that we are accumulating every single day. None of these are quick fixes. Rather, they involve long and sustained commitments, but there are grounds for hope. For the first time in American history, there is an organization, HISA, which has the power granted by law to obtain all information from sports participants relevant to the issues of horse and jockey safety. With this comes a responsibility to use this information for the good of the sport and use it as effectively as possible. The data situation is like a barn that hasn't been mucked out in ages. It's a pile of you-know-what, but you also know there's a pony in there somewhere. Where's the page? So, in conclusion then, our team is working absolutely as hard as we can. We understand that we have a great legacy to protect. In the United States, horse racing goes back hundreds of years. It has been documented to go back thousands of years in world history. So what we are doing really matters. And we are trying to evolve the game. We are trying to make it as safe as possible with the most cutting-edge techniques possible. But at the end of the day, we remember at the very moment of genesis of these games. And it was just that, a very simple game: which horse can get to the finish line first? And the essence of this game was one simple thing, that everybody plays by the same rules. That is the principle we are trying to enforce today. That is the principle that is what HISA stands for, and even a 2-year-old can figure that out. Thank you.